What's up there, Workforce? Chris here with Work To Game, and I just thought I would sit down and list 5 reasons that you shouldn't play Final Fantasy XIV online. Now, I just created a post that just went up about 5 reasons you should play it, and so if you've been on the fence leaning towards playing it, that goes over 5 reasons that I think this game really shines. And this is the other side of that coin. This is 5 reasons that I think maybe this game might not be for you. And so let's go ahead and jump in. I do first want to thank our Patreons. You guys make videos like this possible. Thank you guys so much for your support, and if you'd like to consider becoming one, maybe click on the link in the description below.
The clarity is worth it.
Now, jumping in, the first thing is story. Now, it is also the first point of why to play this game, but now I'm looking at the other side when story maybe isn't for you. If story is not for you, this story is overwhelmingly long. The amount of time you're going to spend clicking through all the different story quests and everything like that, it is an excessively long amount of time, and they do sell story skip potions, but you don't necessarily get to skip through the most recent. So at some point you're gonna have to sit down, and most of the cutscenes are skippable, but not all of them. And so it is a preposterous amount of story, and if you skip it to get to level cap, like many people do, it is so in-depth that it's hard to catch up. And so it's hard to say, okay, now I'm level capped, I would love to play, the 4.4 story and know what's going on. I don't know what's going on. I skipped everything up into this point, and so now I'm just totally lost. And so it is very, very hard to keep up with. It is just, if you're playing this to play a game, just know that you also bought a set of movies, and it's going to jump back and forth without your control. It does try to warn you about when there's going to be an excessively long cutscene incoming, but it doesn't tell you how long that is. It doesn't tell you what it's about, and what the key points are if you skip it. And so I would say that story is one of the biggest things from holding this back from being palatable to a whole set of players who don't care about that sort of thing. It is a beautifully wonderful part of the people that do, but if you're in a boat like me, where story is kind of not necessarily the most important part of a game, this game can be a little overwhelming in that way. The second piece is that it is grindy. If you want to level all of your classes up, this is a true JRPG. So the time that it's going to take to level up all your crafters, all your gatherers, all your other classes, getting into content that is like Eureka, grinding through things like relic weapons, all of that, this game is laid all over with grinds. There are so many different little daily beast tribes you can do and things like that, that if you are looking for a game to just get in there and get into content and get out and feel like you completed it, you will never be done with this game. So if there is a mount you want or something like that, there is a good chance that it is locked behind an enormous amount of playtime. I don't necessarily think of that as a bad thing, because I think of MMOs as a great value for the amount of money I spend every month, that I can easily get my 15 hours in for just $15, and I can't do that with, movies or anything like that. It's hard to get that value. Even a cable bill, if you pay $100 a month for cable, which some people do, I don't know how you watch 100 hours a month. But when you talk about an MMO, 15 bucks a month, yeah, 15 hours is easy. I can get that in a week sometimes. So I would say that this game is very, very, very grindy, and the best way to get things up, a lot of times people ask me, well, what's the best way to level this, or what's the best way to make this much money, or what's the best, and when I tell them, they're like, yeah, but what else you got? Because that sounds like a lot of time, and that's because it is. So if you are struggling with that and you like everything else about this game, I encourage you to just break that into little pieces and kind of tackle it. Just do a little bit each day, and you'll be shocked at what you can achieve in a month, because this game can take your time as fast as you can give it. And the third point I'd like to bring up is that this game does not have substantially, wonderfully established PvP. It is still kind of in its infancy stages. That's a hard set of words to say. And it is, in my opinion, it is just not all there when compared to more established PvP games. And so if you're coming to this game solely for the purpose of PvP, this game is most likely going to let you down. Now, if you just want PvP in addition to all this other content, it's probably good enough for that, but the wait times can be very long. The classes can be very poorly balanced depending on the content patch. And ultimately, if you don't have a perfectly good, balanced, full, awesome team, the best of the PvP is something that you're going to struggle to get wins at against the people who are good. And so when you talk about things like the Feast Championship and stuff like that, where you can kind of play in these regional championships and get free tickets to go to these conferences and all that, that is the gap between those players and everybody else is enormous. And so the PvP in this game is a system that I think is not done being developed, and it's not done being balanced and grown. And so if you're coming to this game solely for PvP, I would encourage you to maybe hold off a little bit longer. Now, another community that doesn't always feel supported is the Savage community in here. And so that's kind of your mythic, your hardcore, your intense, your top-end players. And there is something for them. There's Savages, there's Extremes, and there's Ultimates. Now, they did just announce that they're going to be doing less Ultimates. It's only going to be 2 per expansion. And it honestly feels like, in general, they're pulling away from that truly hardcore raiders that are, you know, world ranked, and we all spend 14 hours a day playing every day of the year, and we never take breaks. That group of people, that they're taking that level of challenge out of the game. That's not to say challenge isn't there. So for anybody who says this game is easy, I would be careful to ask that person, are they clearing all the current Savage content? Are they clearing all the current Extreme content? Because odds are they're not. The vast majority of players are not. That's why I can say that. And that content is very difficult. So there is something that takes a lot of coordination and a lot of difficulty. But if you're solely getting this game for a challenge, just beware that it is possible to catch up in this game. So you may end up needing a second title. It is possible at the rate that they release those to be totally clear and have it on farm every week for a coordinated, dedicated set of players. Now, for casual, more regular players like me, getting to the Savage content before the Savage content gets nerfed is a challenge in itself. It's very, very hard to get all of the content clear before it's gone. Before it's less relevant or it becomes too easy. And so I think Savage content is plenty difficult for the average player and even the above average player, but if you consider yourself like a top-end rated WoW player or something like that, and you've been in Mythics the whole time, and you've been in Mythic plus 25 or whatever, then I think that the Savage community over here might be exactly what you're looking for or below. It is not going to exceed expectations. And the last thing I'm going to say here is for the last group of people that I think this game might not be for, is that this game has a phenomenally involved community. And so if you're looking for a game to play alone and you don't want to have to play with other people, this is not the game for you. This has a ton of level synced content. There's a ton of people chatting. There's a ton of content that is very kind of slow paced and meant to be enjoyed with others, that kind of grindy part I was talking about earlier. And during that time, people chat and people interact. And so this game, if you do not want to get involved in the community, can be very, very lonely, because huge pieces of this game are geared towards that community. And so if you don't want that piece, then maybe this isn't the game for you. Things like getting in a guild, they're called free companies, taking part in all the world stuff, that's called grand companies, all these things like that, and getting out there and interacting with different housing and all that. This game can be very, very lonely if you don't have another set of players or friends, or aren't interested in making a set of friends either on the forums or in game or something like that. Just being nice and polite in parties is very common. And so if that's something that kind of gets on your nerves and you just want to be in solo content, then maybe I would look at a more traditional solo content Final Fantasy game like Final Fantasy 15 or something like that, where in some of these games either multiplayer is not an option or it's been overlaid as a secondary game mode. And so I would go back and look at a more traditional Final Fantasy title where you can get a lot of the same themes, a lot of the same combat, a lot of the same feel from the same company, different studios, and you can enjoy those systems over there. My favorite Final Fantasy game of all time was Final Fantasy X. That requires no multiplayer. And so maybe I would consider something more like that. If I really wanted to play a Final Fantasy game and just didn't want to play with other people. And so that's really the 5 reasons that I think you maybe should consider passing on this game. It is the second largest MMO for a reason. It does a lot right. And I put out another video about that, the 5 reasons that I think that it's absolutely the game for a lot of people. But that doesn't mean it's for everybody. And so I just wanted to kind of quickly break down maybe some reasons that if you were like, I don't really feel like this game's for me, is that true? Or I'm worried that I fit too far into one group of people. There's only one type of play that I really get a lot of joy from. And I'm wondering if Final Fantasy XIV has that. If it's not in this list, it probably does. But like, my brothers are really heavy into PvP and they like to dabble in really hard PvE. So this isn't a game that ever holds their attention for very long. Now, they've been back from time to time because they like to play with me, but they never really stick around because the game itself doesn't hold them. And so, that's something I respect. They get frustrated by the amount of grindiness, by the amount of story, because they just want to get into PvP. They just want to do a little bit of hard PvE fights. And they're not really interested in making friends. And so this list almost entirely describes them as reasons that they should not be playing Final Fantasy. And that is not to say that there isn't an MMO for them. It just says that this might not be it. And so I just wanted to kind of go over this list for anybody that's been on the fence and really is looking to just say, I don't think that I'm fitting the mold, but I'm not sure, and see if this list sounds more like you. If it doesn't, then just let us know in the comments down below. We can kind of help point you in the direction of either games that we've experienced that are like that, or tell you where in Final Fantasy it is like that, because this game is very broad. It has an almost infinite amount of hours you can put into it, and so there might be somewhere for you. I just want to set your expectations going in case this isn't the game for you. That's okay. Gaming is an incredible place right now where you don't have to play your second best or your third best or a kind of best or the best of a genre you don't like, that you can wait and you can find that perfect title for you. There are so many wonderful games out there. There is no way you'll get a chance to play them all, so you might as well play the ones that fit you best. This has been Chris with Work To Game. Thank you guys so much for hanging out, and I will see you next time.
Hey you! Especially if you're a new face, welcome to the workforce. If you want to hit that subscribe button to say you like us, we'd really appreciate it. But there's a little bell next to it if you really like a channel, and you can go ahead and hit that if you'd like to be notified. Be sure that if that thing lets you know, hey, do you always want to be notified, or you just sometimes want to be notified, that you tell it, oh man, I actually meant by notified, notified. So why don't you give that a click, and we hope to see you around in our next video.